I came to marry you and give you sons, said the virgin girl the Mafia boss saved 20 years ago. Standing at his doorstep, with nothing but determination, she offers herself as payment for a life debt. What she doesn't know is that he's been watching her every move for 2 decades, protecting her from the shadows. As she enters his dangerous world of power and violence, gunfire erupts at their engagement party. Hidden enemies from the past emerge, seeking revenge for a blood feud that began the very night he rescued her. But the greatest shock isn't the bullets or bloodshed. It's the truth locked in his private files. She's not just some random child he saved. She's the daughter of his father's betrayed right-hand man, with a bloodline that makes her both valuable and hunted. As bullets fly and secrets explode, one question remains. Did he save her out of mercy all those years ago? Or was she always meant to be his perfect revenge, his greatest weakness, or the key to his redemption? The study's heavy silence pressed in around them as Theo's finger lingered beneath Kara's chin. His touch was surprisingly gentle for hands she knew had ended lives. The leather and mahogany-scented room seemed to shrink, making the space between them feel charged with unspoken tension. 20 years, Theo said, his voice a low rumble that seemed to vibrate through her bones. 20 years since that night, and you show up offering marriage like a business transaction. His dark eyes searched her face, looking for something she couldn't name. Kara forced herself to hold his gaze despite the predatory intensity radiating from him. Up close, she could see the shadows of violence etched into the harsh planes of his face. The boy from the singed photograph had grown into a man who wore danger like a second skin. It's not just business, she said, proud that her voice remained steady. You saved my life that night. Sister Maria told me everything about the hit meant for both me and my mother, about how you got me out while the house was still burning. Theo's jaw tightened. He dropped his hand from her chin and moved to lean against his desk, crossing his arms. Sister Maria was supposed to keep you safe, not fill your head with ideas of debt and obligation. She kept me safer than you know, Kara countered. She taught me to shoot, to fight, to survive. She knew this day would come, that I'd want answers about my father, about why the Castellani family hunted us. A muscle ticked in Theo's cheek. Angelo Ricci was my father's right hand. His betrayal cost him everything. My father wasn't a traitor, Kara said firmly, her hands curling into fists at her sides. Sister Maria showed me the evidence she'd gathered over the years. He was trying to stop your father from starting a war that would have destroyed both families. Theo's eyes narrowed dangerously. Careful, little nun. You're speaking about things you don't understand. I understand more than you. Think. Kara took a step closer, refusing to be intimidated. I understand that you knew the truth about my father's loyalty. That's why you saved me that night. Why you chose Sister Maria to protect me. You've been watching over me all these years, haven't you? The silence stretched between them as Theo studied her with calculating eyes. Finally, he pushed off from the desk and circled behind her. Kara forced herself not to turn, even as she felt his presence like a physical weight against her back. Let's say you're right, he murmured near her ear. Let's say I did keep tabs on you. That doesn't explain why you're really here, offering to marry a man you know is capable of ordering deaths over breakfast. Kara suppressed a shiver at his proximity. Because I've spent 20 years in a convent, watching the world through iron gates, knowing I was meant for something else, something that has nothing to do with debt or obligation. Theo moved back into her line of sight, his expression unreadable. And what would that be? Purpose, she said simply. The same purpose my father had, to bring balance to this world you live in, to be more than just a survivor. A dark laugh escaped him. Balance? There is no balance in this life, cara mia, only power and those too weak to seek it. You're wrong, she challenged. There's honor too. I saw it in you that night, even through my tears and the smoke. You could have left me to die with my mother, but you didn't. That boy had honor. That boy died a long time ago, Theo growled, but something flickered in his eyes, a crack in his carefully maintained control. Did he? Kara reached up slowly, giving him time to stop her as she touched the scar that ran along his jaw. Because I see him right now, fighting against the man you think you have to be. Theo caught her wrist in a grip that was firm but not cruel. You see what you want to see, little nun. This isn't a fairy tale where love redeems the monster. No, she agreed. This is a world of blood and power, where monsters wear designer suits and good men die protecting what they believe in. I'm not here to redeem you, Theo Castellani. I'm here because this is where I belong, in this world of shadows and sharp edges. trying to carve out something real. His thumb brushed over her pulse point, sending electricity through her veins. And if I take what you're offering, if I make you mine in every way, there's no going back to your quiet convent life. I said goodbye to that life the moment I stepped through your gates, Kara said. The question is, are you brave enough to let me in? Or will you send me away because it's safer to be alone in your fortress of power? Sunlight streamed through heavy silk curtains, rousing Kara from sleep. For a moment, she stared at the ornate ceiling, disoriented by the luxury surrounding her. The bed could have fit 4 of her convent cots. Crystal chandeliers caught the morning light, sending rainbows dancing across marble floors. A sharp knock interrupted her thoughts. A woman in a crisp black uniform entered, carrying garment bags. Good morning, Miss Ricci. Mr. Castellani requests your presence for breakfast in 30 minutes. I've brought suitable attire. Kara slid from the Egyptian cotton sheets, feeling out of place. Thank you, but I have my own clothes. The woman, Maria Torres, according to her name tag, gave Kara's simple dress a pointed look. Mr. Castellani insists. Inside the garment bags, Kara found a cream silk blouse and tailored black pants that fit perfectly. She wondered uneasily how they knew her size. Meanwhile, on the private terrace, Theo stood at the stone railing, reading intelligence reports about Russian Bratva movements along the lakefront. Their new leader, Viktor Petrov, was getting bold. The timing of her arrival is either providential or suspicious, Luca Moretti said quietly, appearing at his side. A wife with no family allegiances could stabilize your position. The old families respect tradition. Legitimate heirs would secure the future. Theo's mind flashed back to that night 20 years ago. Smoke thick in his lungs, gunfire echoing through marble halls, and a little girl's terrified eyes meeting his through the chaos. He'd been 18, already hardened by his father's cruelty, but something in him couldn't leave her to die. Have her thoroughly vetted, he ordered, every moment since she left that convent. Already done, Luca replied. She's exactly who she claims to be. The question is, why now? Before Theo could respond, Kara emerged onto the terrace. The morning light caught her dark hair, reminding him of another woman who'd once moved through these rooms. Her mother, Isabella, before bullets had torn their world apart. Sit, he commanded, gesturing to the table laden with breakfast dishes. He watched as she took in the spread with poorly concealed awe. Not quite convent fare. Sister Maria believed in simple living, Kara replied, selecting a plain piece of toast. But she also taught me to adapt. Tell me about your life there. It wasn't a request. Daily prayers, garden work, teaching children from the village. Kara met his gaze steadily. Sister Maria also taught me other things, languages, mathematics, history. She wanted me prepared. Prepared for what? For whatever life had planned. She paused. She knew I wouldn't stay forever. Theo leaned back, studying her. And what makes you think you're prepared for this life? For what being my wife would mean? I've had 20 years to think about it. Her voice was quiet but firm. I know what your world requires. Luca cleared his throat discreetly. The Bratva situation requires attention, sir. A moment. Theo's eyes never left Kara. I'll accept your proposal, with conditions. You'll live here for 1 month before any announcement. Consider it a trial period. I have a condition of my own, Kara said. I want to know why you saved me that night. Theo's jaw tightened. It was a moment of weakness I've never repeated. That's all you need to know. After breakfast, Maria Torres led Kara on a tour of the compound. Security cameras tracked their movement through marble hallways. Armed guards stood at strategic points, nodding respectfully as they passed. This will be your primary living area, Maria explained, showing her through a series of elegant rooms. Mr. Castellani's private wing is accessible through that corridor, but you'll need clearance to enter. Kara noted how every staff member moved with precise efficiency, their eyes always alert. Even the gardeners trimming roses wore concealed weapons. That evening, standing at her bedroom window, Kara watched Theo in the courtyard below. He stood in a circle of men who radiated menace, yet they all deferred to him with careful respect tinged with fear. Even from above, she could see how they angled their bodies away, maintaining careful distance. Theo's presence commanded the space. Dark suit impeccable, movements controlled and deliberate. He gestured sharply and one of the men flinched. Whatever world Sister Maria had tried to prepare her for, the reality was far more intense. Suddenly, Theo's head snapped up, his gaze locking with hers through the window. The force of his attention hit her like a physical blow, making her step back instinctively. But Sister Maria hadn't raised a coward. Kara forced herself forward again, holding his stare. For a moment, they remained locked in silent challenge. Then something shifted in his expression, the ghost of a smile touching his lips before he turned back to his men. Kara stayed at the window, watching as darkness settled over the compound like a shroud, thinking about the man below who held so many lives in his hands, including now her own. The library smelled of leather and old paper, a comforting reminder of the convent's small collection of religious texts. Kara ran her fingers along the spines, admiring titles she'd only dreamed of reading. This room had become her sanctuary over the past 3 days, a place where she could pretend she wasn't living in a den of wolves. Voices drifted through the wall from the adjacent study, making her pause. The shipment numbers don't add up, Theo's voice carried clearly. Someone's skimming. We've narrowed it down to Martinez, Luca replied. He's been making frequent deposits to an offshore account. Handle it quietly. And the Russians? Let them make the first move. When they do, we'll eliminate the entire command structure. Kara's hand trembled as she pulled a book from the shelf, trying to focus on anything but the casual way they discussed ending lives. She'd known what Theo was, had seen glimpses of his violence in the papers she'd collected, but hearing it discussed so coldly made it real in a way that twisted her stomach. Later that afternoon, while exploring the mansion's endless corridors, she found herself near Theo's private office. A side door stood slightly ajar, unusual given the tight security. Curiosity drew her forward, just for a peek at the space where he conducted his darker business. The sound of approaching footsteps sent her ducking behind an ornate Chinese screen. Before she could slip away, Theo entered through the main doors, followed by 2 guards dragging a struggling man, Jorge, one of the kitchen staff who'd been kind to her. Please, Mr. Castellani, Jorge begged. My family— Your family will be taken care of, Theo said, his voice unnaturally calm. But first tell me exactly what information you sold to the Russians. Kara pressed a hand to her mouth, watching through the screen's delicate fretwork as Jorge crumbled under Theo's questioning. The man confessed to photographing documents, sharing security rotations, detailing staff movements. I understand desperation, Theo said, drawing a pistol from his jacket, but betrayal has consequences. The gunshot was surprisingly quiet, a muffled pop that ended Jorge's life instantly. Kara bit down on her knuckles to stifle her gasp as his body slumped to the floor. Clean this up, Theo ordered, and increase surveillance on all staff members with access to sensitive areas. Kara waited until they'd removed the body before fleeing on shaking legs. She barely made it to her bathroom before emptying her stomach. Jorge's terrified face burned into her memory. When Maria came to escort her to dinner, Kara pleaded illness. Just some tea, please. I'm not feeling well. An hour later, Theo's personal physician arrived, a stern-faced woman who examined her thoroughly before declaring there was nothing physically wrong. The message was clear. Theo knew she was avoiding him. As midnight approached, Kara couldn't bear the walls closing in any longer. She dressed quickly in dark clothes, grateful she'd memorized the service corridors during her explorations. The kitchen entrance seemed her best chance. Surely they couldn't guard every door. But each exit she tried was locked, each corridor monitored. Even the loading dock where deliveries arrived had 2 armed men posted. Her carefully planned escape crumbled as she realized the extent of her captivity. Defeated, she returned to her room, only to find Theo lounging in the armchair by her window, his dark suit blending with the shadows. Only his eyes caught the moonlight, watching her with predatory intensity. Did you enjoy the show this afternoon? Kara's heart stopped. He'd known she was there, had probably known the moment she entered his office. Everything in her screamed to run, but her feet seemed frozen to the floor. Her voice failed as he rose smoothly from the chair. She backed toward the door, but he moved with impossible speed to block her path. His presence filled the space, leaving no room for escape. You offered yourself to me, Kara. There's no walking away now. You're mine until I decide otherwise. Real fear finally broke through her careful composure, sending tremors through her body. Something flickered in his expression then, a shift she couldn't quite read. His hand rose to her face, and she flinched, expecting violence. Instead, his touch was surprisingly gentle as he wiped away a tear she hadn't realized had fallen. The tenderness of the gesture confused her more than any cruelty would have. Rest tonight, he said, his voice softer than she'd ever heard it. Tomorrow, we'll discuss what you really saw today and why it was necessary. He left her standing there, shaken by this glimpse of humanity in a man she'd just watched commit murder. Her fingers rose to her cheek where his touch lingered. wondering how the same hand that ended lives could offer such careful comfort. The contradiction made her head spin as she sank onto her bed, knowing sleep would be impossible with the day's horrors playing behind her eyes. Her window offered a view of the compound's high walls, now seeming less like protection and more like prison bars. She'd chosen this cage, walked into it willingly. But watching Jorge die had shown her the true nature of the beast she'd pledged herself to, and the terrible power he wielded so casually. The morning sun glinted off the Bentley's bulletproof glass as they glided through Chicago's streets. Kara sat rigid in the butter-soft leather seat, keeping as much distance as possible from Theo while still appearing composed. "You're not the first person to try escaping," Theo said, breaking the tense silence. "Though you made it further than most." Kara stared straight ahead. "Are you going to kill me too?" "No." His voice held a trace of amusement. Jorge's death wasn't about punishment, it was about protection. They turned onto a street lined with small businesses, restaurants, shops, and cafes. People bustled about their morning routines, nodding respectfully as the distinctive black Bentley passed. "Look around you," Theo continued. "Every business here operates under my protection. Their employees feed their families because I ensure stability. The Russians would destroy that stability, bring violence to these streets. And that justifies murder? In this world? Yes." He gestured to a small Italian restaurant. "The owner there has 5 children in college. Jorge's information would have given the Russians leverage over him. They'd have threatened his family, forced him to launder money, eventually destroyed everything he built." Kara watched an elderly woman sweeping her storefront, waving as they passed. "They all know who you are?" "They know I keep order. The police are corrupt, politicians can be bought. I provide real protection." Over the next 2 weeks, Kara's education in Theo's world intensified. Every morning, his Aunt Gabriella arrived to teach her the intricate social codes of their circle. "Back straight," Gabriella corrected, watching Kara practice her formal dining etiquette. "You'll be..." Representing the Castellani name now, every wife in Chicago will be looking for weakness. The lessons extended beyond table manners to the complex web of alliances and rivalries between families. Gabriella proved a patient teacher, her aristocratic manner softening slightly as Kara proved an eager student. Theo began including her in business dinners, introducing her as his fiancée, weeks ahead of schedule. Kara learned to read the room, noting which legitimate businessmen knew the truth about Theo's empire and which remained willfully ignorant. The charity gala tested everything she'd learned. Wearing a midnight blue gown that cost more than a year's salary at the convent, Kara entered the glittering ballroom on Theo's arm. "Mrs. Vitale, coming at 2:00, Gabriella murmured, appearing briefly at Kara's side. Her husband controls the dock unions. Smile, but not too warmly. Kara navigated the social minefield carefully, aware of calculating eyes watching her every move. The other wives sized her up openly, their designer gowns and perfect manners failing to hide their predatory interest in Theo's chosen bride. When the press of people and expectations became overwhelming, Theo appeared at her elbow. "The governor's asking about our restoration project," he said smoothly. "Some fresh air while we discuss it." On the terrace, Kara breathed deeply. "Thank you," she said quietly. "You're doing well," he replied. "Better than expected." Back at the compound, preparations for their engagement party accelerated as reports of Russian activity increased. Kara overheard snippets of concerning intelligence. Weapons shipments, territory disputes, whispers of war. The night before the announcement, Theo presented her with a velvet box. Inside, an enormous emerald ring caught the light, surrounded by perfectly cut diamonds. "My grandmother's," he explained. "She wore it for 60 years of marriage, through 3 territory wars and countless challenges to our family's power." That evening, Kara found him in his study, reviewing security plans for the party. Maps and guard rotations covered his desk, along with reports marked with his precise handwriting. "Thank you for the ring," she said from the doorway. "It's beautiful." He looked up, studying her for a moment before gesturing to the chair across from him. "Join me for a drink?" She settled into the leather chair, accepting the crystal tumbler he offered. The scotch burned smoothly, warming her from within as they sat in companionable silence. "Do you regret it?" he asked suddenly. "Coming here, offering yourself to this life?" Kara considered the question carefully, watching the amber liquid swirl in her glass. "I'm afraid of you, Theo," she admitted finally. "I'm afraid of this world." She met his intense gaze. "But strangely, I'm starting to feel like I belong in it, and that terrifies me even more." Their eyes held over their drinks, sharing a moment of genuine understanding. The grandfather. Clock ticked steadily in the corner, marking time in this strange new world where murder and protection, violence and tenderness, wove together in patterns Kara was only beginning to understand. The engagement ring caught the lamplight as she raised her glass, its weight both comforting and concerning on her finger. Tomorrow they would make their union official, presenting a united front to friends and enemies alike. But tonight, in the quiet of his study, they simply sat together. Two people bound by fate and choice in a dangerous dance neither fully understood. Through the gilded mirror, Kara barely recognized herself. A team of stylists had transformed her from convent-raised orphan to Mafia royalty. The emerald green gown hugged her curves before flowing into a dramatic skirt, its color perfectly matching her engagement ring. Her dark hair was swept into an elegant updo, exposing the graceful line of her neck. "Perfect!" the lead stylist declared, adding one final touch of lipstick. "Mr. Castellani will be pleased." Kara's heart fluttered as she approached the grand staircase. Below, the mansion's marble foyer filled with Chicago's criminal elite in their finest attire. She caught sight of Theo at the bottom of the stairs, commanding in his black tuxedo. When he looked up, something possessive and appreciative flashed in his dark eyes. The intensity of his gaze sent heat rushing through her veins. He extended his hand as she reached the final step. "You look stunning," he murmured, bringing her fingers to his lips. The next hours passed in a whirl of introductions and carefully choreographed social interactions. Theo presented her to each of the 5 families that controlled Chicago's underworld. The Vitalis, who ruled the dock unions. The Romeros, who handled gambling and prostitution. The Constantines, who controlled construction and real estate. The Martinellis, who managed political connections. And finally, the Castellanis, Theo's family, who orchestrated it all. "Welcome to the family, cara mia." Don Martinelli kissed her cheeks, his grandfatherly manner belying the fact that he'd ordered dozens of murders. Kara played her role perfectly, channeling everything Gabriella had taught her. She laughed at the right moments, asked appropriate questions, and maintained the delicate balance between charm and reserve expected of a future Donna. But she didn't miss the underlying tensions crackling through the celebration. The Russian Bratva representatives stood apart, their formal attendance barely masking their hostility. Viktor Petrov, Pavel Sokolov's second in command, watched her with calculating eyes that made her skin crawl. "Careful with that one," Gabriella whispered, appearing at her side with a fresh champagne glass. The Russians never forgave Theo for expanding into their territory 5 years ago. After 2 hours of constant social performance, Kara needed a moment to breathe. She slipped away from the grand ballroom, finding herself in a quieter wing of the mansion. The door to Theo's private study stood slightly ajar, unusual given his obsession with security. Curiosity drew her inside. A panel in the wood-paneled wall caught her attention, slightly misaligned. When she pressed it, it swung open to reveal a hidden safe room. The sight within stopped her breath. The walls were covered with surveillance photos, hundreds of them spanning 20 years. Her 7-year-old self in the convent's garden. Teenage Kara at school events, recent images of her working in the convent's library, medical records, school transcripts, detailed reports of her daily routines. Her hands trembled as she touched a photo from just months ago. All this time, she'd thought she was making a bold choice, seeking out Theo, but he'd never truly let her go. The mansion's security alarm shattered the silence. Gunfire erupted outside, followed by shouting and the sound of breaking glass. Kara's heart pounded as she heard heavy boots in the hallway. The study door burst open. Theo rushed in, gun drawn. His eyes darted from Kara to the exposed surveillance wall. For a moment, neither spoke. "You never let me go," she whispered, gesturing to the photos. "All these years." Theo moved to respond, but his secure phone rang. His expression hardened as he listened to the caller. "Pavel Sokolov," he said grimly after hanging up. "The attack was orchestrated by Pavel Sokolov. His brother was the target the night I found you." His jaw clenched. "He's finally found a way to hit back at me. Through you." More gunfire echoed through the mansion. Theo pulled Kara deeper into the safe room, securing the heavy door. The space felt smaller now, charged with unspoken truths and the weight of their shared past. Through the reinforced walls, they could hear the chaos of the firefight. Security teams shouted commands, bullets pinged off stone. Somewhere, glass shattered and women screamed. Kara stared at the wall of photos, each image a piece of the puzzle she'd never known she was part of. Here was her first communion, captured from a discreet distance. There she was at 18, walking through town with Sister Maria. Even her college applications were documented. "Why?" she asked, her voice barely audible above the mayhem outside. "Why watch over me all these years without ever making contact?" Theo moved closer, his presence both threatening and protective. His fingers brushed the edge of a photo showing Kara tending the convent's roses last spring. The tenderness of the gesture contrasted sharply with the violence in his voice when he'd mentioned Pavel's name. The room's emergency lights cast shadows across his face, highlighting the tension in his jaw. Outside, car engines revved and tires squealed. The attackers retreating or reinforcements arriving, Kara couldn't tell. She turned to face him fully, refusing to be cowed by his intensity. "I thought I chose this life," she said, "but you've been choosing it for me all along, haven't you?" Dawn crept over Chicago's skyline, painting the destruction at the Castellani compound in harsh relief. Bodies lay scattered across the manicured lawn, some covered with dark sheets that fluttered in the morning breeze. Blood stained the imported marble steps where Theo's men had made their final stand. Kara stumbled slightly as Luca guided her and Theo through the wreckage toward the waiting helicopter. Her emerald gown, torn and smeared with soot, caught on broken glass. The beautiful dress that had made her feel like a queen mere hours ago now felt like a costume from another life. "Watch your step," Theo murmured, his hand steady at her elbow. His touch sent conflicting emotions through her. Anger at his years of surveillance, warring with an inexplicable sense of security. The helicopter's rotors whirred to life, drowning out the sounds of cleanup crews already at work below. As they lifted off, Kara caught a final glimpse of 3 body bags being loaded into unmarked vans. Theo's loyal soldiers, who'd died protecting the compound. "They were good men," Theo said, following her gaze. His voice was tight with controlled rage. "Family men! Pavel will pay for every drop of blood spilled tonight." The city fell away beneath them as they headed north. Kara's hands trembled in her lap, adrenaline finally giving way to exhaustion. "This is just the beginning, isn't it?" "Pavel's been waiting years for this opportunity," Theo confirmed. "He'll keep coming until one of us is dead." The helicopter descended an hour later, touching down on a private landing pad nestled in dense Wisconsin forest. A stark, modernist structure of glass and stone rose before them, somehow both imposing and perfectly integrated into the wilderness surrounding it. "My father built this place as a fortress disguised as a retreat," Theo explained as they entered. "The security systems are state-of-the-art. Only a skeleton crew patrols the grounds. We'll have privacy here." Kara wandered through the open living space, taking in the panoramic views of the lake through floor-to-ceiling windows. The intimate scale of the house meant no avoiding Theo, no hiding from the conversation they needed to have. "Show me," she said finally, turning to face him. "Show me everything you collected about my life." Theo studied her for a long moment before leading her to his office. He unlocked a hidden panel, revealing a digital archive that documented 20 years of surveillance. School records, medical files, photographs. Her entire life categorized and preserved. "Why?" she whispered, scrolling through images of birthdays, graduations, quiet moments in the convent garden. "Why watch over me without ever reaching out?" Theo moved to stand behind her, close enough that she felt the heat radiating from his body. "At first it was strategic, ensuring no one discovered your survival. But over the years," he paused and she sensed him struggling with rare vulnerability. "Protecting you became the one pure thing in my life, the one action not tainted by violence or selfish motives." Thunder rumbled outside as storm clouds gathered over the lake. Kara stared at a recent photo of herself, praying in the convent chapel, trying to reconcile the man who'd obsessively documented her life with the one standing behind her now. The lights flickered once, twice, then plunged them into darkness. Emergency generators hummed to life, casting the room in dim blue light. Kara shivered. Whether from cold or proximity, she wasn't sure. Theo shrugged off his jacket, draping it over her shoulders. His hands lingered, warm against her upper arms. She turned to face him, finding his expression unusually unguarded in the emergency lighting. The power surged back on, but neither moved. The moment stretched between them, charged with unspoken possibilities, until Theo's phone shattered the silence. "What did you find?" he answered sharply. Kara watched his expression darken as Luca reported their prisoner's confession. When he hung up, the vulnerability she'd glimpsed was gone, replaced by cold fury. She found herself walking out onto the deck despite the light rain still falling. The lake churned beneath heavy clouds, matching her turbulent emotions. She sensed rather than heard Theo follow her outside. I should hate you for watching me all these years, she said without turning. It should terrify me. Theo moved to stand beside her, close but not touching. But it doesn't. The question held an edge of uncertainty she'd never heard from him before. Rain dripped from her hair as she considered her answer. Lightning flashed across the troubled water, illuminating the truth she could no longer deny. What terrifies me is that it makes me feel safe, she whispered. What does that say about me? The question hung between them as another flash of lightning turned the raindrops to silver, nature's display matching the intensity of the moment they found themselves suspended in. Dawn crept through the lake house windows as Kara followed Theo to the private shooting range nestled behind the property. Morning mist still clung to the ground, creating an otherworldly atmosphere that matched her surreal situation. I don't want to learn this, she said, eyeing the matte black handgun Theo placed on the shooting bench. What you want doesn't matter anymore. His voice was firm but not unkind. In my world, you need to be able to protect yourself. Kara watched as he expertly broke down the weapon, explaining each component with practiced precision. His hands moved with fluid grace, making the deadly tool seem almost beautiful. Stand here, he instructed, positioning her in front of the target. He moved behind her, adjusting her stance with careful touches. Feet shoulder-width apart, both arms extended. His chest pressed against her back as he guided her hands around the grip. Kara tried to focus on his technical instructions rather than the warmth of his body or the way his breath stirred her hair. Breathe in, then squeeze gently on the exhale, he murmured close to her ear. The gun kicked in her hands, the report echoing across the lake. Her shot went wide, but Theo nodded approvingly. Again. They fell into a routine over the next week. Mornings began with target practice, Theo's patience never wavering as Kara's accuracy slowly improved. The rest of their days took on an unexpectedly domestic rhythm within their gilded cage. Security updates came hourly, Pavel's men combing the northern woods, drawing closer to their sanctuary. Theo doubled the patrols, restricting Kara to the house and immediate grounds. The enforced proximity created a strange intimacy neither had anticipated. One evening, Kara found Theo in the library, a chess set laid out before him. My father taught me on this board, he said, gesturing for her to sit. Every game was a lesson in strategy. She watched his hands as he explained each piece's movement, the same hands she'd seen deal death now, carefully demonstrating the knight's L-shaped path. Their fingers brushed as they reset fallen pieces, each touch carrying more weight than it should. They developed small rituals, cooking together in the gleaming kitchen, Theo revealing surprising skill with Italian dishes learned from his grandmother. Late nights found them on opposite ends of the leather sofa, old films playing while rain tapped against windows. Sometimes Kara would drift off, waking to find Theo had covered her with a blanket without waking her. The peaceful facade shattered on their 8th night. Perimeter alarms screamed through the house, red warning lights bathing everything in crimson. Theo moved with lethal focus, checking security feeds. 3 of Pavel's men breached the outer line, he reported, already moving to arm himself. Get to the panic room. No! Kara's voice was steady as she retrieved her gun from the drawer he'd designated for it. I won't hide while you fight alone. Something flickered in his eyes, pride mixed with fear. Stay behind me. Shoot only if you have to. She positioned herself at the window, weapon ready as Theo had taught her. The first attacker died before reaching the house. Theo's shot perfect, despite the darkness. The second made it to the deck before falling. The third crashed through a side window, rolling to his feet with military precision. Kara's world narrowed to the sight picture Theo had drilled into her as the intruder raised his weapon. Her shot caught him in the shoulder, sending him stumbling. Theo's bullet found his heart before he could recover. In the ringing silence that followed, Theo's hands frantically roamed over Kara, checking for injuries. Are you hurt? Kara, look at me! Are you hurt? The desperate edge in his voice broke something loose inside her. She gripped his shirt, pulling him closer as his hands framed her face. Their lips met with bruising. Force, desperation, giving way to something deeper as the kiss softened. They clung to each other, hearts racing with shared survival and dawning recognition of what lay between them. Hours later, after Theo's men had removed the bodies and upgraded security, Kara sat on the kitchen floor. The tile felt cool against her legs as she stared at hands that had taken a life. Theo found her there, sliding down to sit beside her without a word. The silence stretched until she found her voice. I took a human life today. He took her trembling hands in his, calluses rough against her skin. You protected yourself and me. When he tried to pull away, she gripped tighter. Don't go, she whispered into the darkness. She felt his hesitation, then strong arms lifted her as if she weighed nothing. He carried her to his bedroom, laying her gently on the dark sheets before stretching out beside her. They remained fully clothed, but something more intimate than passion passed between them as she curled against his chest. His heartbeat steadied her, a rhythm of life amid death. As exhaustion pulled her under, she felt his arms tighten around her, holding her as if she was something precious rather than another weapon in his arsenal. Morning light filtered through the lake house windows as Kara stirred awake, immediately aware of Theo's solid presence beside her. His dark eyes were already fixed on her, expression unreadable as he studied her face with an intensity that made her breath catch in her throat. The crisp white sheets twisted around them, capturing the warmth they'd shared throughout the night. Sleep well? His voice was rough with morning, yet somehow gentler than she'd ever heard it. The usual sharp edges were smoothed away, replaced by something that almost resembled tenderness. She nodded, suddenly self-conscious about her tangled hair and yesterday's wrinkled clothes. The memory of their kiss flooded back, along with the violence that preceded it, the metallic scent of blood, the echo of gunshots, Theo's merciless efficiency as he eliminated the threat. Strange how those terrifying images now blurred against the softness of his lips on hers. Yes, she whispered, not trusting her voice with more. Her fingers clutched the sheet to her chest, suddenly aware of how vulnerable she felt under his gaze. They moved through breakfast like dancers learning new steps, hyper-aware of each accidental touch as they navigated the kitchen. Theo made espresso with practiced precision, the rich aroma filling the space between them, while Kara prepared toast, the domestic scene surreal after yesterday's bloodshed. Sunlight spilled across the marble countertops, highlighting the bruises on Theo's knuckles, evidence of violence that contrasted sharply with the careful way he handed her a steaming cup. You should eat more, he said, sliding an extra piece of bacon onto her plate when she sat at the counter. His eyes tracked her movements, noting every hesitation, every small flinch. I'm fine, but she took a bite anyway, noticing how his shoulders relaxed slightly at her compliance. The salty crispness burst on her tongue as she watched him sip his espresso, throat working beneath the shadow of stubble on his jaw. The day passed in a strange haze of normalcy and tension. Security sweeps continued hourly, grim-faced men in black reporting to Theo in hushed tones, while Kara pretended not to hear the body count rising. But between reports, they found themselves stealing glances, testing this new gravity between them. Once he reached out to tuck a strand of hair behind her ear, his fingers lingering against her cheek in a touch so gentle it made her heart ache. As evening approached, storm clouds gathered over the lake, turning the water a turbulent slate gray. Lightning flickered on the horizon, promising violence to match the unspoken tension building between them. They settled in the living room, firelight casting dancing shadows while rain drummed against windows, creating a cocoon of warmth against the gathering storm. Theo poured them each a measure of scotch, amber liquid catching the firelight as his hands trembled almost imperceptibly, a vulnerability she'd never witnessed in him before. I was 12, he said suddenly, staring into his glass as if reading some terrible truth in its depths. The first time my father made me kill. Kara set her drink down on the heavy wooden coffee table, giving him her full attention as he continued. The confession felt fragile, dangerous, a bomb that might detonate if handled incorrectly. A shopkeeper. He'd refused to pay protection money, insulted our family name. His jaw clenched, a muscle ticking beneath the skin. Father put the gun in my hand, said if I didn't pull the trigger, he'd kill the man's children instead. Made them watch while I did it. His voice dropped to something barely above a whisper. The oldest boy was my age. Theo! She reached for his hand, but he wasn't finished, his words coming faster now, as if a dam had broken inside him. That was just the beginning, every weakness beaten out, every mercy punished. He locked me in a closet for 3 days when I hesitated during my second kill. The nightmares started then. They never really stopped. He took a long drink, throat working as the scotch disappeared. Until the night I found you, saving you. It was the one choice he couldn't taint. The one thing I did that wasn't covered in his fingerprints. Kara moved closer, the leather couch creaking beneath her weight as she shared her own pain in return. The convent was lonely. Sister Maria tried, but I always felt like a ghost. No past, no future, just questions no one would answer. She traced patterns on his palm, feeling the calluses from years of handling weapons. The other girls had visitors, families, stories. I had nothing but whispered rumors and nightmares I couldn't explain. Her voice softened. When I finally learned the truth, finding you became everything. I needed to belong somewhere. Their eyes met in the firelight, amber reflections dancing in the darkness of his gaze. Kara saw the moment Theo's control cracked. Need replacing caution as something primal and hungry flashed across his face. She made the choice for both of them, rising to straddle his lap, the soft fabric of her borrowed sweatpants sliding against his jeans. I want this, she whispered against his mouth, feeling his breath hitch. I want you. His hands gripped her hips, restraint evident in his trembling muscles. His thumbs made small circles against her hip bones, each touch sending electricity through her veins. Kara, you've never... The concern in his voice made her heart squeeze painfully in her chest. I trust you. She kissed him deeply, feeling his groan vibrate through her chest as his arms tightened around her, gathering her against him as if she might evaporate. The taste of scotch and desire mingled on their tongues. He carried her to his bed with remarkable gentleness for a man of such violence, one arm supporting her back and the other beneath her knees. Their clothes fell away between kisses, Theo's patience evident as he explored her body with reverent hands and mouth, drawing sounds she never knew she could make. He whispered praise against her skin, treating each inch of her like something precious and rare. When he finally moved inside her, the brief pain faded quickly under his careful attention. His forehead pressed against hers, eyes locked as they breathed each other's air. They found their rhythm together, Theo's usual iron control surrendering to something raw and real. In those moments, masks fell away completely, leaving just man and woman, vulnerable and true beneath the storm-lashed windows. Dawn found them tangled in sheets, Theo's usual severity softened by satisfaction. The dangerous edge that always surrounded him like an aura had temporarily receded, replaced by something almost peaceful. He actually smiled. A real smile, not his usual dangerous smirk. When Kara stole sips of his coffee, her hair a wild tangle around her shoulders. The spell broke with Luca's arrival. Theo transformed before her eyes, the gentle lover becoming the ruthless boss as his conciliar delivered intelligence in measured tones. Yet something had shifted. He maintained physical contact with her even as he issued brutal orders regarding Pavel's organization, his hand resting possessively on her thigh beneath the table. Double the bounty on his lieutenants, Theo commanded, thumb absently stroking Kara's knee. I want examples made. Ensure the bodies are found where Pavel's remaining men will see them first. His voice held the same cold precision he'd used when touching her the night before, the contrast chilling. Luca's eyes flickered briefly to Kara, something unreadable passing across his features before he nodded. It's already arranged. The first two were taken an hour ago. Later, Kara stood in their bedroom, arms wrapped around herself as she stared out at the lake. Raindrops still clung to the glass, distorting the view like tears. Theo found her there, immediately reading her troubled expression with that uncanny perception he always seemed to possess. Is this who we'll be? She asked softly, not turning to face him. The gentleman in private, the monster in public. He moved behind her, his heat radiating through her thin shirt as he pulled her against his chest, heartbeat steady under her cheek. His arms encircled her waist, strong and secure. For men like me, there is no redemption, Kara. His fingers threaded through her hair, cradling her skull with surprising tenderness. But with you, there might be balance, something worth building that isn't founded entirely on blood. His kiss on her forehead held unexpected tenderness, both understanding they'd crossed a point of no return. The storm had passed, leaving the lake glassy and calm, reflecting the clearing sky like a mirror. Whatever came next, they would face it together, the monster and the woman who chose to love him anyway, finding their way through the darkness one step at a time. Kara stirred marinara sauce, while Theo chopped garlic with precise, practiced movements. The domesticity of the scene felt almost absurd. A mafia boss and his convent-raised fiancé making pasta from scratch while armed men patrolled outside. You're doing it wrong, Theo said, reaching around her to adjust the heat. She bumped him with her hip. I learned from Italian nuns. I think I know how to make marinara. His low chuckle warmed her neck. These moments still surprised her, glimpses of the man beneath the monster. 3 days of shared meals, shared bed, shared silence had created something dangerously close to normal between them. "Business calls," he said, kissing her shoulder. "Try not to burn down my kitchen." She watched him stride to his study, phone already in hand. The pasta water bubbled, steam fogging the window, where she could see guards making their rounds, automatic weapons at ready. With dinner simmering, curiosity drew her to the storage room Theo had finally unlocked for her that morning. "Financial records," he'd said. "Feel free to look around." The room smelled of old paper and leather. Metal filing cabinets lined the walls, their contents meticulously labeled. In the corner stood an older wooden cabinet, its brass lock tarnished with age. Sister Maria's voice echoed in her memory. "Sometimes God's path requires unconventional skills." The nun had taught her lockpicking, along with prayers, though Kara never understood why until now. The lock clicked open easily. Inside, dozens of folders filled the shelves. One name caught her eye. Angelo Ricci. Her hands trembled as she opened the file. A photograph slipped out, a handsome man in his 30s with familiar eyes. Her eyes. She saw her own features echoed in his. Face, the same high cheekbones, the same determined set of the jaw. Documents spilled across the desk as she dug deeper. Newspaper clippings about Angelo Ricci, trusted consigliere to the Castellani family. Internal memos about his opposition to expanding into drugs. A death order signed by Theo's father. The truth unfolded in brutal clarity. Angelo had hidden his daughter, hidden her, before confronting the elder Castellani. The hit that killed her mother was meant for them both. And Theo... "I see you found it," his voice from the doorway made her jump. "You knew." She turned slowly, papers clutched to her chest. "All this time, you knew who I was." "Yes." No excuse, no explanation. "Why?" The word came out raw. "Why keep this from me?" "To protect you." He stepped closer. "Your father's name still carries weight in our world. Some would kill you for it. Others would try to use you." "Like you're using me?" Bitterness filled her mouth. "A strategic marriage to the last Ricci heir, legitimizing your power through my bloodline." "You think that's what this is?" His eyes flashed dangerously. "What am I supposed to think?" She flung the papers at him. "You've lied from the beginning. I saved you." His control cracked. "I was supposed to kill you that night. Father's orders. But I looked at that terrified little girl and made a different choice. And then watched me for 20 years without saying a word. Because every rival family would have hunted you down. The Russians, the Mexicans, even our own allies. They all wanted the Ricci bloodline erased." He ran a hand through his hair in frustration. "I couldn't even trust my own father not to finish the job if he found out you survived. So you just played God with my life, decided what I could and couldn't know about my own identity. I decided to keep you alive." He stalked closer. "Every security measure, every background check on the convent staff, every shadow contract on anyone who got too curious. All of it to protect you." The security alarm's sudden wail cut through their argument. Theo's phone buzzed immediately. "Multiple breaches," he barked into it. "How many?" His face hardened at the answer. "Fall back to secondary positions. Initiate protocol red." The window behind them exploded inward. Theo jerked, red blooming across his shoulder as he shoved Kara toward cover. "Move!" He pressed her behind his desk, grimacing as he drew his weapon. "The panic room. Not without you." She helped him up, supporting his weight as footsteps thundered through the house. They made it to the study, Theo leaving a trail of blood as he secured the reinforced door. He handed her his backup gun with bloody fingers. "Whatever happens," he said, eyes intense despite his pallor, "they cannot take you alive. You know too much now." Kara checked the weapon with steady hands, their earlier argument suspended by survival's brutal math. Outside, Boots approached the door as they shared a look of grim. Understanding, the truth of her identity might destroy them, if Pavel's men didn't manage it first. The study erupted in chaos as bullets splintered the wooden door. Kara crouched behind Theo's heavy desk, her gun trained on the entrance. Beside her, Theo's breathing grew labored, his shoulder wound, staining his shirt crimson. 2:00, he murmured as shadows moved past the frosted glass. Kara squeezed the trigger just as a figure appeared, her shot finding its mark with surprising accuracy. The man dropped with a grunt. "Good girl," Theo said, pride mixing with pain in his voice. He fired twice more, taking down another attacker trying to breach their position. Spent shell casings littered the floor as they defended their position. Kara's ears rang from the constant gunfire, but her hands remained steady. Sister Maria's teachings on focus during chaos served her well, though the nun probably hadn't intended these circumstances. "Last magazine," Theo warned, sweat beading on his forehead. Blood loss was taking its toll, his usually perfect aim now slightly off. Kara checked her own weapon. 3 rounds left. Heavy boots thundered down the hallway. Too many voices spoke in rapid Russian. Theo pushed himself up, swaying slightly as he reached for a particular book on the nearest shelf. "When I say run!" He pulled the book, and with a mechanical click, the entire bookcase swung inward. "Run!" They emptied their remaining rounds at the door as it began to splinter. Theo shoved her through the hidden passage, following close behind. The bookcase sealed shut just as their attackers breached the study. The tunnel was narrow, lit by emergency strips along the floor. Theo stumbled, leaving bloody handprints on the concrete wall. Kara wrapped an arm around his waist, taking his weight. "Left!" he gasped. "Boathouse! Half-mile!" They moved as quickly as possible through the underground maze. Theo's skin grew clammy against hers, his steps increasingly unsteady. Still, he remained alert, directing her at each intersection. "You're not as heavy as I expected," Kara said, trying to keep him focused. A weak chuckle escaped him. "Disappointed?" "Relieved. I'd hate to drop you." Their banter died as voices echoed behind them. Their pursuers had found the tunnel entrance. Kara pushed harder, practically dragging Theo around the final bend. Ahead, metal stairs led up to a trapdoor. "Let me go first," Theo insisted, but Kara ignored him, climbing the stairs while supporting his weight. She pushed open the trapdoor cautiously, revealing the boathouse's wooden interior. Moonlight filtered through high windows, illuminating a sleek speedboat bobbing gently in its slip. They were almost there when a familiar voice stopped them cold. "That's far enough!" Luca emerged from the shadows, flanked by 4 men in tactical gear, his gun trained steadily on them as more of Pavel's men filed in behind them. "You!" Thao's voice was ice despite his weakness. "Why?" "Because you've gone soft," Luca said, genuine regret coloring his tone. "Keeping secrets that could have strengthened us. The Ricci bloodline, that could have united the families behind us. Instead, you hid her away, protected her like some precious treasure instead of using her value. You made a deal with Pavel." Kara felt Theo tense beside her. "He recognizes opportunity. The territory will prosper under new leadership, my leadership, with his support." Theo lunged forward suddenly, but blood loss had slowed his legendary reflexes. 2 of Pavel's men easily subdued him, forcing him to his knees. Kara fought as others grabbed her arms, but she couldn't break free. "Take her to the car," Luca ordered. "Pavel's waiting." "No!" Kara struggled harder as they dragged her toward the door. "Theo!" His eyes met hers, filled with helpless rage as consciousness finally slipped away. The last thing she saw was Luca raising his gun. A single gunshot echoed across the water. Minutes later, locked in a luxury SUV's backseat, Kara watched Luca return alone, blood on his sleeve. Her heart shattered as they drove away, her screams muffled by the vehicle's soundproofed interior. The journey passed in a blur of grief and rage. Pavel's compound sprawled across manicured grounds, his mansion a monument to new money and old violence. They led her to a suite that might have impressed her in other circumstances. All silk and crystal, with a view of illuminated gardens. Pavel visited within the hour, his old-world manners a veneer over predatory intent. "You're worth more than you know," he said, studying her tear-stained face. "The last Ricci heir, you'll help convince Theo's captains to surrender peacefully. And after, perhaps a more permanent alliance?" Kara said nothing, her mind fixed on the strange hesitation she'd noticed in Luca's eyes when he'd returned to the car. Something wasn't right about his behavior, about the lack of proof of Theo's death. Later, alone in her gilded cage, she discovered the bathroom window, small, but possibly manageable. Hope flickered briefly before the door opened. Pavel entered with 2 guards, his smile cold as winter. "Trying to escape already? I expected more patience from a convent girl." He moved closer, watching her retreat. "Rest well tonight. Tomorrow you'll record a message to Theo's captains, encouraging their surrender." "You said Theo was dead." Her voice cracked. Pavel's laugh chilled her blood. "Not yet. His execution is scheduled for tomorrow, and you'll be there to witness it." Dawn painted Pavel's compound in shades of gray as 2 women dressed Kara in a fitted black gown, their movements efficient and impersonal. Through lowered lashes, she noted the distance to the door, cataloged the scissors on the vanity, measured the weight of the crystal perfume bottle that could become a weapon. Her fingers traced the seam of her dress, testing if she could rip it for better movement if needed. "Arms up," one woman commanded, adjusting the bodice. Kara complied, using the motion to study the window's security sensors. Third floor, but decorative stonework could provide handholds, if necessary. Across the city, in a windowless safe room beneath an abandoned warehouse, Theo regained consciousness on a medical cot. His shoulder throbbed where Pavel's bullet had struck him, but the wound was expertly dressed. Luca sat nearby, monitoring security feeds. "The performance was convincing," Luca said, noting Theo's awareness. "Pavel's people believe you're dead, though the blood loss wasn't entirely theatrical." Theo's lips curved slightly. "You always did have impeccable timing with that squib, brother." The word hung between them, an acknowledgement of the truth they'd kept hidden for decades. Luca, the illegitimate son of Theo's father, had been positioned as consigliere to maintain the facade while ensuring bloodline succession options remained. "How many know I survived?" Theo pushed himself upright, ignoring the pain. "Just our most trusted 5. They're already in position throughout the city." Luca handed him a tablet displaying a map marked with Pavel's key holdings and lieutenant's locations. "We begin whenever you're ready." Over the next 48 hours, Theo orchestrated systematic destruction from his hidden command center. Pavel's gambling operations burned, his weapon shipments vanished, key lieutenants disappeared into Lake Michigan. Each strike precisely calculated, creating mounting chaos within Pavel's organization. Meanwhile, Kara waged her own subtle war. She memorized guard rotations, noted which staff members showed reluctance or hesitation in their duties. During meals with Pavel, she played the frightened convent girl while gathering intelligence from his boasting. When left alone in various rooms, she sabotaged phones, crossed wires and security panels, created small malfunctions that would accumulate. Her first escape attempt came during a bathroom break. She'd loosened the towel rod during previous visits, and when the female guard turned to check a noise Kara had orchestrated, she struck. The guard crumpled silently. Kara acquired her weapon and keycard, making it through 2 security checkpoints before the alarm sounded. She reached the perimeter fence before Pavel himself caught her, his manicured appearance at odds with the brutality of his grip. "Impressive," he said, twisting her arm until she dropped the gun. "I underestimated you." The punishment was immediate. A stark cell in the basement, no windows, single bulb, metal cot. But during the struggle to drag her there, Kara managed to jam a hairpin into a crucial junction box. The compound's East Sector cameras would glitch intermittently now, a small advantage for whoever might exploit it. In his command center, Theo watched Pavel's empire crumble. Reports flowed in, shipments seized, allies turning, accounts frozen. His shoulder wound throbbed as he worked, reminding him of the price of underestimating Pavel's reach. But each twinge only fueled his methodical dismantling of his enemy's organization. "The compound security has weaknesses," Luca reported, studying surveillance feeds. "Random camera failures in the East Sector, inconsistent guard rotations, communication delays." Theo's eyes narrowed. "Kara." "She's been busy," Luca agreed. Pavel underestimated her convent education. Sister Maria was quite thorough in teaching survival skills. In her cell, Kara worked silently. The cot frame had a weak spot, poor welding she could exploit. Each movement was careful, quiet, creating a jagged piece of metal she could use as a weapon. The distant sounds of chaos grew closer, explosions, gunfire, shouting. She heard running footsteps, guards calling for backup. The compound's power flickered, emergency lights casting red shadows. When the cell door blasted inward, she was ready, makeshift weapon gripped tightly. Smoke poured through the doorway. Pavel's figure emerged, his usual polish shattered by desperation and rage. Blood stained his expensive suit, his eyes wild as he grabbed her arm. "You've brought this on us," he snarled, yanking her toward a hidden exit. "If I'm going down, I'm taking Castellani's woman with me." The battle sounds intensified above them. Closer now, systematic and steady. Kara recognized the pattern of Theo's efficiency in the measured advance, even as Pavel dragged her deeper into the compound's shadows. The marble floors of Pavel's mansion echoed with gunfire and screams. Theo moved like a shadow through the chaos, his injured shoulder forgotten in the singular focus of his mission. Blood splattered the expensive wallpaper as his team systematically eliminated Pavel's guards, their efficiency born from years of practiced violence. "Clear," called one of his men from the grand staircase, the ornate banister now riddled with bullet holes. Theo ascended the stairs, his face a mask of controlled rage. The wound in his shoulder pulled with each movement, but adrenaline dulled the pain. Behind him, Luca coordinated their forces through a radio headset, directing the careful sweep of each room. When they reached the basement cell block, the signs of struggle were immediate. The blown door, scorch marks from the explosion, and most tellingly, drops of fresh blood leading toward the east wing. Pavel has a bunker, Luca said, consulting the compound blueprints on his tablet. Hidden entrance behind his private office. That's where he'd take her. Theo's expression shifted from controlled to terrifying, a change that made even his hardened soldiers step back. "Show me!" They found the office empty, but Luca quickly located the hidden panel that revealed a reinforced door. It took precious minutes to breach it, each second amplifying Theo's barely contained fury. The bunker's fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows as they descended. 2 of Pavel's guards attempted resistance, their bodies crumpled before they could radio for help. At the end of a long corridor, voices echoed from behind another heavy door. Inside his private sanctuary, Pavel held Kara against him, gun pressed to her temple. His usual polish had cracked, revealing the desperation beneath. Sweat dampened his designer shirt, his hands trembling slightly against the weapon. "One step closer, and she dies," Pavel snarled as Theo entered, flanked by his men. Kara's eyes met Theo's, and he saw no fear there, only calculation. She'd grown so much from the convent girl who first arrived at his compound. Even with a gun to her head, she remained composed, assessing the situation just as he'd taught her. "You've lost everything, Pavel," Theo said coldly. "Your operation is dismantled. Your lieutenants are dead or turned. Surrender now, and I'll make it quick." Pavel's laugh held an edge of hysteria. "You think I didn't prepare for this? I still have enough overseas accounts and connections to rebuild. Here's my offer. Take the girl and leave Chicago. Forever. Your territory, your power, everything you've built goes to me. Or watch her die, knowing your pride killed her." The tension crystallized as Theo appeared to consider the impossible choice. But Kara had learned to read him over their time together. She saw the microscopic shift in his stance that telegraphed his intent to attack. In that crucial moment, she acted. Kara went suddenly limp in Pavel's grip, her dead weight throwing him off balance for just a split second. It was all Theo needed. He lunged forward as Pavel struggled to maintain his hold on Kara while keeping the gun trained. The shot cracked through the bunker. Kara cried out as the bullet tore through her side, but Pavel had no time to fire again. Theo reached him with lethal intent, his movements embodying the brutal training his father had forced upon him since childhood. The fight was savage and personal. Pavel managed to land several solid hits to Theo's injured shoulder, but rage and skill won out. Theo executed the kill with the same technique his father had made him practice countless times. Quick, efficient, and absolutely final. Kara slumped against the wall, pressing her hand to her bleeding side. Theo gathered her into his arms, his touch surprisingly gentle despite the violence moments before. "Stay with me," he ordered softly as her eyes fluttered. Outside, dawn painted the sky in shades of pink and gold as Theo carried Kara from the bunker. Luca had the compound fully secured, Pavel's remaining men either dead or surrendered. The family doctor was already waiting with a medical team. "The wound is serious, but not fatal," the doctor announced after examining Kara. "She needs immediate treatment, but she'll recover fully." As they stabilized Kara for transport, Theo turned to Luca. The time for secrets had passed. "My brother," he said clearly, ensuring their men heard the acknowledgement. "Your loyalty today goes beyond repayment." Luca's expression remained composed, but his eyes showed the weight of this public recognition. Years of hiding their true relationship dissolved in that moment, strengthening both their personal bond and the organization's structure. Later that evening, in a secure medical suite high above Chicago's glittering skyline, Kara woke to find Theo maintaining his vigil beside her bed. The monitors beeped steadily, marking her survival. "Pavel?" she asked, her voice rough. Theo's expression hardened momentarily. "He'll never threaten anyone again." Kara processed this, examining how naturally she accepted such violence now. "The girl you saved from the convent would be horrified by what I've become." Theo lifted her hand to his lips, kissing her palm with unexpected tenderness. "You haven't become anything, Kara Ricci. You've remembered who you always were, your father's daughter." Through the restored mansion's grand ballroom, Chicago's criminal elite gathered to witness the new order. Kara stood beside Theo at the head table, her emerald engagement ring catching the light. Her wound had healed, leaving only a faint scar, a reminder of the battle that had cemented their position. Representatives from the 5 families approached one by one, paying respects with varying degrees of sincerity. The remaining Russian Bratva members came last, heads bowed in submission. Their spokesman, a gray-haired veteran of countless underworld wars, formally ceded their territory to the Castellani organization. Pavel's death serves as a reminder, Theo addressed the assembly, his voice carrying effortlessly. Challenge us, and you challenge the combined strength of the Castellani and Ricci bloodlines. Kara squeezed his hand beneath the table, noting how the mention of her family name caused ripples of whispered conversation. Her father's reputation still carried weight in these circles. The following week brought another display of Theo's power. In the warehouse district, he gathered his inner circle to witness justice. The traitor, who had fed information to Pavel, knelt on the concrete floor, resigned to his fate. Theo's execution was swift and personal, a message about the price of betrayal. Afterward, in their private study, Kara found Theo washing blood from his hands. Was it necessary? She asked, not flinching from the violence, but questioning its purpose. The old ways still matter, he replied, but his tone held less conviction than before. For now. Over the months that followed, they built something new from the foundation of blood and power. Theo opened his father's archives, sharing Angelo Ricci's history with Kara. She spent hours reading her father's journals, understanding the man who had hidden her away to protect her. He wanted better for you, Theo explained one evening, watching her trace her father's handwriting. A legitimate future, away from all this. And yet here I am, Kara said, looking up at him. Perhaps there's a way to honor both paths. Her influence began subtly reshaping their empire. First, it was small suggestions about investment opportunities, legitimate businesses that could provide cover while gradually replacing their more violent ventures. Theo, surprisingly receptive, found himself drawn to the challenge of transformation rather than mere domination. During a strategy session with Luca, Kara proposed converting several front companies into actual functioning businesses. We have the infrastructure, she argued. Why not make them truly profitable instead of just laundering money? Luca, now openly acknowledged as Theo's half-brother, supported her vision. The legitimate world offers opportunities we've never fully explored, he agreed, spreading out market analyses. Their wedding took place on a crisp autumn morning at St. Michael's Church. Sister Maria made the journey from Italy, her presence bridging Kara's past and present. As she helped Kara prepare, she fastened Angelo Ricci's recovered necklace around her neck, diamonds and sapphires that had been hidden in a family vault for decades. Your mother wore this on her wedding day, Sister Maria said softly. She would be proud of how you found your own way. The ceremony itself was intimate but heavy with significance. Chicago's most powerful families witnessed the union of Castellani and Ricci bloodlines, while Theo's public acknowledgement of Luca as his brother reinforced the organization's stability. During their first dance at the reception, Theo held Kara closer than propriety strictly allowed. Having regrets about marrying a monster? He murmured against her ear. I married a man, she corrected him. One who's learning their strength and change. That philosophy guided their first year together. Kara's presence at business meetings gradually shifted their focus from intimidation to negotiation. She introduced Theo to legitimate power brokers, helping him see how his natural authority could command respect without violence. Theo still struggled with his ingrained responses to challenges. When a rival family tested their new approach by interfering with a shipping operation, his first instinct was swift retaliation. Kara found him in their weapons room, preparing for battle. Show them we can destroy them without firing a shot, she suggested instead. Within a week, their opponents' legitimate businesses faced sudden regulatory issues while their banking access mysteriously disappeared. Luca proved invaluable during the transition, handling aspects of their business that Kara preferred not to know about while building new legitimate enterprises. His network of contacts, developed during years in the shadows, opened doors in unexpected places. We're creating something unprecedented, he told them during a late-night strategy session. A criminal empire evolving into a legitimate dynasty. The transformation wasn't always smooth. Some old guard members resisted the changes, preferring traditional methods. Theo dealt with these situations personally, though increasingly choosing exile over execution when possible. Kara found her own role evolving. The skills learned in the convent, patience, observation, the ability to see beyond surface appearances, proved surprisingly applicable to corporate negotiations. She maintained her moral center while accepting the necessary compromises of their world. 1 year later, Chicago's elite gathered at the Castellani Tower's Grand Ballroom. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over the assembled guests, a mix of legitimate business leaders and carefully concealed criminal royalty. Kara stood at the podium, her dark green dress elegantly accommodating her 6-month pregnancy. The Castellani Ricci Foundation represents more than just charitable giving, she announced, her voice carrying the quiet authority she'd developed over the past year. It's our commitment to breaking cycles of violence by offering children a different path. Theo watched from beside her, his hand resting protectively at the small of her back. The gesture, intimate despite their public setting, spoke volumes about their evolution. Gone was the cold distance he'd maintained with everyone before Kara. In its place was a carefully controlled tenderness, displayed only in these measured moments. The foundation's announcement made headlines across Chicago's social circles. $20 million in initial funding, with programs specifically designed for children impacted by violence. What the papers didn't know was how personal this mission was for its founders. Luca managed the careful vetting of foundation staff, ensuring their legitimate credentials while maintaining absolute security. The organization would operate completely separately from their other enterprises, protected from any potential fallout. We've acquired the old St. Augustine's School property, Luca reported during the reception, showing them updated renovation plans. Private security is already in place, disguised as maintenance crews. Theo nodded approval, his tactical mind noting the defensive advantages of the location while appreciating its accessibility to the communities they aim to serve. The property's transformation would mirror their own, violence giving way to protection, danger replaced by opportunity. Later that evening, after the guests departed and security completed their final sweeps, Kara stood in their bedroom suite. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of their domain, Chicago's glittering skyline stretching toward Lake Michigan. Streetlights traced patterns like constellations, each cluster representing territory now firmly under Castellani control. The past year had seen their influence grow beyond anything in the organization's history. Theo's iron grip on power, combined with Kara's diplomatic touch and Luca's strategic brilliance, created an unprecedented stability in Chicago's underworld. Their legitimate businesses thrived while criminal enterprises gradually transformed into more subtle operations. Kara felt Theo's approach before she heard him, that primal awareness between them having only grown stronger with time. His hand slid around her waist, coming to rest on the swell of their child. The touch was possessive yet gentle, like everything about him now, balanced between power and tenderness. "Was it worth it?" he asked quietly, his breath warm against her ear. "Coming to find me that day?" She turned within the circle of his arms, studying the face she'd first seen in a singed photograph 2 decades ago. The cold eyes that had once terrified her now held warmth, reserved solely for her, though they could still turn to ice when business required. "I came to give you sons," she reminded him, her hand rising to trace his jaw. "But we've created something far more important." Theo's expression softened in that rare way only she witnessed, understanding flowing between them. "A legacy worth having," he said. "A future worth fighting for." His kiss held reverence, passionate yet careful of her condition. When he drew back, his final words carried the weight of absolute truth. "You're mine forever, Kara, just as I am completely yours." Weeks later, they stood together at St. Augustine's newly renovated entrance. The former school had been transformed into a state-of-the-art residential facility, though its historic facade remained unchanged. Inside, highly trained staff, each personally vetted by Luca, prepared to welcome their first group of residents. A procession of vehicles arrived and carrying children from situations all too familiar to both Theo and Kara. As they watched the young ones being led inside, each carrying small bags containing their whole worlds, Kara gripped Theo's hand tightly. These children, like they had been, were damaged by violence and loss. But unlike their own paths through darkness, these young souls would find immediate sanctuary. The cycle they were breaking wasn't just their own, it was generations of pain being redirected toward hope. The facility represented everything they'd built together: protection wrapped in legitimacy, power turned toward purpose, violence transformed into vigilance. Each child entering those doors carried the potential for transformation that Kara and Theo had discovered in themselves. The Castellani-Ricci alliance had created more than just Chicago's most powerful criminal empire. They'd built a bridge between shadows and light, finding balance in the gray areas between justice and power. Their child would inherit not just authority but purpose, a legacy of protection rather than mere control.